So welcome into our webinar. People are just getting in smoothly. We thank you for attending, but as you have heard, this session will be recorded. To keep, if you would like, you can turn on your camera. We like also to have it because we can see the eyes and keep it as a human interaction, but also feel free to turn it off in case you would not like to be recorded. We have chosen also to be in this meeting format to enable some interaction with you. So the chat will be there available so we can interact all together in this session. As you see, we are setting this webinar in order to deliver some information regarding how to improve soil health in urban environments. We dedicated this webinar through a series of webinars that are happening in the nation's framework in 2024. This is one of the webinars that are being held since May. And there are many others that you can also attend and consult on the nation's meeting. The topics are diverse because as maybe you might know, this nations is actually a support system for the accomplishing of the soil deal and looks to support urban living labs within urban and rural environments. As Polytechnico di Milano, I'm here, I'm Farah and Eugenio.
Hi.
We are more into kind of providing information regarding how to manage living labs in urban environment. And we have proposed to dedicate a session on co-creation strategies by inviting speakers with us. We will have 3 speakers in this event who are attending from different European contexts. So we'll be presenting them also for you in a bit. But we felt that there was a need to bring more information about what it means to co-create and what are the strategies that has been tested so far, especially in urban and industrial environment to address soil health. In the preparation and the support in this meeting, we also have Concha from Fondesit. If you would like to say hello, Concha.
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Concha will be also chatting with you. She will be collecting your questions in the chat, so please don't hesitate to drop your comments, to drop any questions that may arise during the presentations, so we are able to kind of present them in public. We will offer you, of course, the possibility to intervene, maybe ask your question directly. So we'll try our best so your any curiosities or any in-depth exploration that you held can be addressed. You see also there is Gabriele behind the scene also who's chatting with you under Nation Soil, and he will be also kind of adding more informations in the chat, some links that can be useful to gain some exploration about other events happening in nations or some of the feedbacks that we might like to collect from you. Maybe we can, I don't know, Eugenio, would you like to say something more? Or we can go to the agenda of the meeting today.
We can definitely go to the agenda, thank you. And maybe before that, we can also remind our guests that Nations also offers a number of facilities, services, among them also a matchmaking platform. So if you are interested in also building consortia or being part of a existing consortium for one of the open calls, you can definitely join also the matchmaking platform. You find all the information on our website of Nations. And this is a terrific occasion also to meet with other participants. Yes, you see the link also in the chat now.
Exactly. I see that many of you most probably are quite familiar with how with some of the codes for good flow. I see many of you has already muted their microphone. For who didn't do it, please do, just to be sure that we have a smooth setting, so we are able to manage the different interventions in a good dynamic. As for who has attended, now I remind you that this session is recorded. It is recorded because it will be also afterwards made available online. So whoever wants to come back to some of the insights or some of the inputs that has been shared, you can also do it through these materials. I think, yeah, for the agenda, probably we can just let you know the flow so you know what to expect. We're going to spend some times, very few time, me and Eugenio, just to introduce you to the context of this specific webinar and the reason why we wanted to invite these three speakers who are going to really bring us very grounded and rich input from experience that has been happening in different settings in Europe. They are not all within the living lab models, but we consider that they can really provide insights that actually can feed into the designs of urban living labs addressing healthy soil. So I thanks a lot Fabrizio Ungaro, who is attending from the Institute of Bioeconomy and National Research Council in Italy. Also Codrul Papina from Urba Sofia. And Alba Peiro, who's attending also from Spain. The three of them will have a time, like 15 minutes each, in order to present us a case study that they have been following from very near. Two of these projects actually has been quite or achieved and having a second phase in their life development. Another project, which is the eco soil, actually it has started just last year and it's ongoing. We wanted to have this mix in order to kind of show different maturity and also diverse type of interventions. Following this, we are counting to have enough time. We count on 30 to 45 minutes so we can exchange all together. And this will be kind of the opportunity to bring your question in the space and have an interactions with the speaker. So please don't hesitate to drop your questions, and they will be collected and then voiced out around that time. We hope by 11 to attend then. If it's not 11, it's 11:15. So we can start with the introduction, Eugenio.
Okay, so welcome everybody again, and thanks for being here. So for the introduction, very briefly, we'd like to start with the challenge that we have ahead, and which is the challenge also given by the soil mission and for the soil deal. Of course, 61% of European soil are actually unhealthy according to the European Soil Observatory dashboard. You find there a lot of information about soil issues in terms of pollution, sealing, erosion, desertification, loss of biodiversity, and all these problems, of course, refer to different land use soil types. Of course, today we are specifically talking addressing the issues of urban and industrial soils. Of course, agricultural soil is a main concern of the soil mission, but today we're gonna especially explore what also urban and industrial soils are responsible for in terms of unhealthy soil. So this is the premise. So European soils are unhealthy. That's why Europe and the soil mission has established a strategy with 8 main objectives that you are probably familiar with. I will not go through all the 8 objectives, but they will be recalled during our presentations today, of course. And how to address these objectives actually through this idea of healthy soil living labs. So Europe recognizes that living labs might be a good way, a way to address these issues in a multi-stakeholder partnership. And specifically, we have been investigating this topic of living lab across the nation's project experience. So you find a lot of information and webinars that we held on the concept of healthy soil living lab. Of course, healthy soil living lab is a bit different from the traditional way of intending what a living lab is, especially healthy soil living labs that are promoted, and 100 will be established in the next years and through the open calls also, have three pillars basically that you see in the figure. So living labs should report and activate research and innovation programs. They also should contribute to communication engagement of local communities and diffuse soil literacy, which is also one of the 8 objectives. And last but not least, also contributing to monitoring and co-monitoring practices. So how stakeholders involved in the living lab can carry out monitoring practices. Of course, this is quite clear in principle. The challenge that we are going to investigate today is how to improve or how to sustain living lab practices through co-creation, and what is the special role that co-creation might have in reinforcing this concept of living labs and lighthouses. As you might know, living labs, according to the soil mission, are established as multiple partner stakeholders partnerships. So you have a number of stakeholders together working in a local ecosystems, and those partners will establish up to between 10 and 15 or 20 experimental sites locally. So they have to be close to each other, because the idea is that these experimental sites will test some let's say services, some facilities, some innovations, and they will exchange among each other the best practices, and so that we are sure that lighthouses, so those ones that promote best practices, can also diffuse those best practices to others. So ideally, when you build up a consortium in response to the calls, you have 4 or 3, at least 3 cross-European transnational ecosystems, up to maybe 5 ecosystems that work at local level, at regional level in this way. I remind you that so far we have some open calls, so you can look at the, of course, Horizon Europe webpage, but also on Nation's webpage if you want to know more. And especially there are calls related to living labs and also urban soils. About the geography and the distribution of those living labs, as I said, usually living labs are supposed to be based at the regional scale. So locally, because of common challenges, stakeholders gather and they establish this living lab setting with up to 15 or 20 experimental sites. Of course, we can also think about having cross-regional living labs. This also works if there are challenges that are common across borders. So no problem if living labs are established also in cross-regional settings, and even in cross-country settings, in particular cases where there is already a strong collaboration or sharing of practices among different countries. That's it. So maybe just to introduce Farah's next speech, because we were reflecting on how then to establish co-creation practices within living labs. So I give the floor to Farah for this part. Thank you.
Yes, I mean, the idea behind this webinar was like to bring also different perspective on what co-creation is, because often co-creation is quite limited to the field of citizen engagement. But we felt that whenever we want to address urban soil health in living labs, actually there is a management of complexity that really needs to take into account the nature of soil as a transformative challenge. And we know that there's a lot of investments and efforts that are called to come in and promote sustainable land management and soil management across the diverse context of the European and also the other allies around the region. And we represent living labs as these avenues where these collaborative platforms and where these co-creations will bring diverse stakeholders together in order to implement solutions. However, by seeing a bit like whether through the literature, but also the experience that are on the grounds, we are still have some knowledge gaps that remains regarding how we design these transition pathways and how we are able, what our type of constellations can come together in order to address the complexity of the diversity of actions that we need to implement to really come and change the state of soil health, considering that soil, it's a living organism, it has different soil functions, but also it also imply different land use and special context. This is why in this webinar, we wanted to mobilize speakers coming from different backgrounds in order to embrace, if you can go to the next slide, Genio. In order to kind of, we know now when we talk about living labs, we have this kind of standard model that, and we know that in the actual European frame, also within nations, co-creation often calls to invite a large set of stakeholders to involve what we call end users. Often it's intended as the citizens, and also to carry out real life settings. What we felt that we need more contextualized approach and something more tailored to urban environment. We know that probably soil is something much more familiar within a rural context, within more agricultural land management. And whenever it comes to urban environment, there is a specific efforts to do in order to gather the existing knowledge that already has been testing challenges within the urban ecosystem. So this is why we wanted through this webinar to put urban soil at the center also of urban environmental challenges. We will have an intervention from Fabrizio that will really be onto the what is the soil ecosystem functions and what are the tools actually that can help us assess them. This is in order to shift a bit the view that so far also in land planning, especially in urban environment, the soil or the land is approached as a surface, but actually we need to go much more in depth and explore it as a living soil, a resource to protect, how these approach can inform the urban living labs, and what are the different levels of co-creation. For that, we will try, and here we can go next, Eugenio. We are looking to understand some of the consideration that needs to guide the mindset in the living lab. Some of this consideration on how to design is really to understand what do we mean when we talk about soil health. I think through the three perspectives that we are bringing in, we will explore some of them. Not all, but I think it will open some doors in order to understand what we intend by soil health. What are these ecosystem functions that we need to recognize whenever we understand soil as an organism that benefit the urban ecosystem? What is the impact of land take on soil properties? What are the transboundary dependencies, especially when we talk about the rural urban dependencies, but especially whenever we say that now we are exposed to disruptions, we have climate disruptions, and I think there's an interest to understand what is the role of soil in urban environment, knowing that there are ecological questions that are being quite important to integrate. And then if there are, we are also talking about what are these conflicts or contradictions when it comes to densify or to decontaminate some sites in urban environment. We will not have all the answers today, but these are some of the considerations that we are exploring that needs to guide the design of living labs for healthy urban soils. Some of the urban components, the urban living labs components that we are looking also to identify today is whenever we talk about urban soil, what are these alert spaces? Where are we need to intervene? What has been explored so far? What are the type of actions that are being implemented? We will discover there are actions more related to the diagnosis of the soil. There are actions that are more related to how to make the soil to deseaning, to decontaminating. There are other actions that are more related to the soil literacy. So all these actions that are meant to have a cultural shift so we can transform our daily land use of soils and contribute to the challenge. So for that, who are the allies who can come in? We will check that there are not only the citizens, but there are the pedologists, the soil scientists. We have the tenant, the landowners. So who are these people and these actors who are engaged in these constellations? What are the activation strategies that needs to happen? We will discover some of them, and especially activating strategies that not only work on the citizen engagement, but also what type of institutional collaboration needs to happen. What are these policy, science, governance interactions that also needs to happen in order to have more long-term planning and integration? What are the adversaries? So all these disruptions that come in and how they can be resolved. We know we will have the examples of the Emilia-Romagna through Fabrizio, who will tell us about some of the adversities that came in. And then what are the opportunities? So we can really embed some of the learnings within structural instrument, whether it's an urban policy or a territorial policy. And I think Kodrut will be bringing us also more additional information on that. There are many other components. We limited our presentation here because it was only introduction. So we can go next for the third slide. So this is why we wanted to bring speakers who can help us to learn from what exists. We will have the intervention of Fabrizio, who will bring us this project that happened through the LIFE framework, which is Save Our Soil for Life. And he will be bringing us the experience from Forli. What is interesting with the experience of Forli, it is something that really was happening across three cities within the region of Emilia-Romagna that was working on the diagnosis. So we will have experience of what is to make a diagnosis of the soil, but there has been also special intervention and also efforts to integrate this within a structural like instruments like the planning policy. There are also experiences that are practical too, like the experience that will be brought by Kodrut about decontaminating post-industrial sites within the project of Spire, which has been an urban innovative action funded project. And with Kodrut, we will be discovering, beyond the desealing that we will be discovering with Forli, what we mean when we decontaminate, what are the special interventions that can be held so we can have phytoremediation, biomass production, and how these kind of intervention can provide soil literacy avenues. So we'll be getting more into the activation strategy, especially at the citizen level. And then we will widen the perspective on soil literacy and monitoring with ALBA, because ALBA will be really at the core of, we will get bigger at scale because it's a very ambitious projects happening at a European scale, and really putting at the center the idea of how we can collaborate cross-country and put citizen science and soil literacy at the core. So with these three interventions, we are looking to explore diverse perspective and to provide some food for thoughts for whoever is interested to design constellation. So I would say, let's go into the presentations. So, for the presentation, so we invented these three European case studies, and we invited the speakers to address 5 aspects that will be answered in different manners and in different intensity according to the type of intervention. We asked them to tell us what is how their co-creation happen, at what scale, for what scope, and with what type of actors, to deal with what type of challenges of urban soil, and especially what has been let's say, within these strategies of implementation, what has been the difficulties, but also the opportunities that has been raised on. We asked them whenever it has been applicable to tell us what are the type of intermediation that happen in order to gather the knowledge constellation, but also to mobilize and facilitate access to land whenever they needed to intervene physically. And whenever it applies, there has been any land use optimization stories that share information about how soil health can be integrated within soil ecological functions reactivation. And last, what type of advice they can provide to peers in order to shape the co-creation strategies for soil health initiative. Now, I would like to give the floor for Fabrizio. Fabrizio will be bringing us, so also you can go forward, Eugenio, we can see the title. Fabrizio will be bringing us through this experience of Forli through this SOS for Life project, and especially that is embedded in the 2030 net zero land take policy, which is also in the applicable in the Emilia-Romagna region. Just a short bio of Fabrizio, so we can know with whom we are, for whom we are speaking, for what type of expertise. Fabrizio, he holds a PhD in soil science and climatology, so he will be really bringing us this perspective when we deal in urban environments. He has nearly 30 years of research experience on soil properties, qualities and functions, also in digital soil mapping and ecosystem services assessment. He works as a full-time researcher at the Institute of Bioeconomy of the National Research Council in Italy, and he has collaborated as a soil scientist and spatial data analyst in several EU national and regional funded research projects, and that in diverse and multidisciplinary contexts. So we are looking forward to hear you, Fabrizio.
Thank you, Farah. I'm going to share my screen.
Please.
Yeah, but I need you to...
Yeah, you can deactivate, yes. So Fabrizio, you have 15 minutes. When we are at 2 minutes by the end, I'm gonna give you a sign.
Yes, thank you again. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here today to share once more my experience from the SOS for Life project. You should see my full screen now. Yes.
We still don't see full screen. Maybe it's taking time. Now it's perfect. Yes.
So the SOS for Life project was funded in the framework of the European Life Programme and ran from 2014 to 2020, and had a budget contribution of nearly 1 million euro from the EC. It's interesting from a Living Lab perspective to analyze in detail the partnership of this project, as we have a different level of governance represented by 3 municipalities, which were Forlì, who was also the leading partner of the project, Carpi and San Lazzaro, so 3 municipalities in the Emilia-Romagna plain in northern East Italy. We had also the Emilia-Romagna region with 3 separate offices, so the soil survey office, the statistical office, and the land use, land cover, land planning office. So the regional presence was relevant as data provider, but also for setting the legislative framework in which our actions were set. Then there were us as soil scientists, but also biophysiologists and ecologists and plant experts and meteorologists from the National Research Council Institute for Bioeconomy. Then we had the regional branch of the National Association of House Builders, ANCE. So actually, this is an association of a private company dealing with the private sectors involved in building and construction sector. Then we have an NGO, Legambiente, the regional branch for Emilia-Romagna, which is dealing mostly and historically with land sustainability and citizenship involvement into land governance. And they were dealing with divulgation, dissemination, and communication within the project, and then a mixed public-private sector company, which is a multi-utility company in the municipality of Forlì. As Farah said, the project aimed to demonstrate the applicability at a municipal scale. So our target scale initially, at least, was the municipal scale towards the European strategy of no net land take by 2050. I become from the end, just want to show you and mention which is the most tangible and visible results realized right after the end of the project. Was the sealing action made by the municipality of Forlì. I want to point out that this action was not actually funded by EU, but all the research that led to the successful implementation of such sealing action was actually framed within the activity of the project. And SOS for Lives was also listed in a recent soil exposed study report from an external company dealing with monitoring life projects, as it was acknowledged for its impact and the loss-lasting effects of the project results, because what we released was actually towards the direction of sustainability and replicability, as we delivered not only examples of application, but guidelines that can be used to get to those application in practice. And here you have 2 links to some videos that can show you all the different phases of the desealing of this area, which is in the historical center of Forlì and covers about 5,000 square meters. And as results, concrete and asphalt impermeable surface with only 6% of free soil was transformed in an area where the permeable surface, so the area where the soil is actually completely in its full potential to deliver ecosystem services, reach up to nearly 75%. And today, this is a garden that you can see in those pictures that was taken by a colleague working in the project just last Saturday. But the action that led to the desealing of that area were actually preceded by a series of investigation and monitoring activities within the framework of the project, as in each of the 3 case study area in the 3 municipalities. In the location of the desealing actions, we realize some experimental plots in which we analyze the response of vegetation to the technosol, which is actually present in these locations under the paved surface, and with the topsoil, so the natural or agricultural soil, which will be used and has been actually used in the case of Forlì to replace the technosol. And in this way, we could assess how plant reacted to the different soil environment by constant monitoring of soil properties, temperature, humidity, biological activity, bulk density, hydraulic conductivity, and nutrients, and the responses to the plants to such conditions in terms of growth, gas exchange, chlorophyll, nitrogen, and carbon content. This is important in a view of circular economy in which the soil, which results for building and construction sites, is not a special waste to be disposed, but it's actually a resource that can be reused. And in this aspect, we also released a guideline for the removal, the conservation, and the reuse of topsoil. Each municipality within the project made an analysis to create the maps of the land take and of the soil sealing, and to assess the historical trends in relation to demographic trends. And the obvious result that we all know is that soil sealing and land take are by no way always decoupled by population dynamics. So land take has nothing, doesn't follow the population trends, but has completely different drivers. This was important just because it allowed the partner municipality to become aware of the land take history in their own territory, because even if they have this kind of information is never structured and never made explicit in order to point out those time dynamics. In all the municipalities, and by resorting to existing soil data, we set up an indicator-based approach to assess and map soil ecosystem services and their synergies and trade-off within the entire territories of each municipality. This is the case of Forlì. So these results, these maps displays from with values ranging from 0 to 1, the lowest and the maximum level of potential ecosystem service supply based on a number of soil functions, which are indexed starting from actual soil data, which are present within the regional soil data. And in this case, we consider production, buffering capacity, carbon stock, water regulation, habitat for microdiversity, and climate regulations. And being this evaluation based on biophysical data, it was also possible to assess in economical terms, resorting to well-established methodology which are implemented by the Ministry of Environment Research Branch ISPRA here in Italy. We can also assess in economical terms, which is the loss through time due to the dynamic of land take, which results in the loss of individual services. We can actually add an economical evaluation per unit surface to the loss of this constellation of ecosystem services in each municipality. But more interesting is the case of Carpi, which is one of the other among the 3 municipalities of the project, where we actually realized an ad hoc soil survey. So we collected information on the urban soil themselves, because the previous assessment was based on information which are available, but that comes mostly from agricultural. So peri-urban agricultural area or enclosed agricultural area in the municipality, but not for the urban soil themselves. So we have we set up a process with the municipality and with other technical offices of each municipality to identify where was it appropriate to take soil samples which are representative of the variability and the properties and function of urban soils. And so we get to map, again, the same ecosystem services, but based on actual data from the urban soil. And we also provided maps that synthesize in terms of hotspot of overall soil quality, which are the area where it's more important to keep the soil as they are capable to deliver high quality for a relevant number of ecosystem services. And so these are the hotspots map of the soil quality maps. Also using these data based on the soil surveys within the city of Carpi, we managed to assess for each different typology of urban green area, for example, the amount of carbon which is stocked in the topsoil of the areas, and also the available water which is available to plants. And so both aspects are very important for local climate regulation, for the possibility to increase the carbon stocked in the soil, but also for planning irrigation, for example, in a climate changing scenarios in order to sustain the vegetation in the green areas of the municipality. And this kind of assessment is very important because we know that one of the first effects of soil seeding is just the complete disruption of the hydrological cycles. Those images that you can see here in the slides refers to 2 years ago in Forlì, which was an extreme flood event, and almost the entire municipality was submerged to the water. It was also, of course, due to extremely intense precipitation, prolonged precipitation that really saturated the complete soil and also lead to a collapse of the hydrological network. But this is also, there is also the responsibility of a completely obliterated functionality from the soil of the region, a region where nearly 9% of the area is sealed. But if you go to the territory of the plain, the figure is just doubled. It's nearly 17% in Forlì, and in the urban core, it reached nearly 50%. And in this condition, the role of the soil that are still free and capable to perform their function is very, very relevant. And so we made a new survey was in the afterlife part of the project in order to characterize, based on local soil properties, the urban soil of Forlì. And again, we produce very detailed, this is 25-meter resolution maps of ecosystem services in Forlì for the same constellation of ecosystem services. And what is important here is to note that even if most of the soil in the urban setting are urbanized, disturbed, or more or less obliterated, they're still capable to provide in different constellation high quality ecosystem services, especially in terms of carbon storage, water regulation, and water storage. But of course, the productive of biodiversity services are nearly transformed to zero. We also couple this kind of evaluation with microclimate assessment and modeling in order to point out which are the area within the municipality where climate extreme event may be harmful to population. And so by coupling this kind of results from the micro meteorological modeling with the soil ecosystem service potential delivery, it is possible for the planners of Forlì to identify which has the priority zone where intervene with the sealing, for example. The point is that not much is left to be sealed because nearly everything is already sealed and used.
Fabrizio, 2 minutes.
Yes, this is the last slide actually. So just to show that these results that we produce for at municipality level for Forlì, and also there are 2 other municipalities involved in SOS for Life, actually were the starting point to trigger a complete assessment for the whole region. So now we have this kind of information available at municipality level, 100-meter resolution for the region. And since there is the regional law, in absence of the national law here in Italy, there is this regional law in Emilia-Romagna, the law 14/2017, which made soil ecosystem service assessment mandatory for the new urbanistic plan, which is the main tool for govern land transformation. And so here in the map in green, you can see the municipality that already requested and included this kind of information within the new urbanistic plan. And so I thank you for your attention. Here you can find some links to the website of the projects and to the websites of Regione Emilia-Romagna, where you can find information about ecosystem survey maps and assessment, and all these data are free to be downloaded. Thank you very much.
Fabrizio, thank you, and applause to you. You have been also 30 seconds before the time ends, so thank you for this rich input. I invite all the audience to drop your questions in the chat, and we will have the time just after the 2 other presentations to go through them. So if you have any question for Fabrizio, just write them down and we're gonna collect them. Meanwhile, we will go to the presentation of Kodrut. Kodrut, if you'd like to share your screen. And also, just to know who will be also presenting for us. And now we are going to another context and also another discipline perspective. Kodrut, he is an urban and landscape planner. He is a PhD candidate in Bucharest, and he's focusing in his study on the development of urban peripheries and biophilic cities. He holds a valuable experience in co-creation processes for strategic planning, urban design, and urban regeneration. And currently he's involved in different European projects, whether through Horizon 2020 projects like Pro-Jureg and Stardust, but also an urban innovative action project, which is Spire by Amare, that we will have the occasion now to discover with him. So Kodrut, I give it to you, same 15 minutes, 2 minutes before the end, I'm gonna give you a sign.
Okay. Thank you, Farah. I hope you can hear me okay, right? So I will present this case study of Spire, which is a concluded project since last November. I have been involved since 2020 in its development. And considering the keywords of today's webinar, the Spire project fits perfectly. It's about soil health and heavy metal pollution of soil in one of the cities of Romania, Baia Mare, and how we developed innovative solutions through a living lab approach and co-creation processes from pilot scale, small size to metropolitan level. So before starting and presenting the actual case study and lessons learned of the project, I want to have a quick intervention here. What is a nature-based solution? So the definitions can be many, the solutions can be also a lot of them. But what is important to note is that a nature-based solution starts with the problem. So if you have defined the problem, then you can see how you can use nature, green infrastructure to address it. So it's a very important element to know. So what is the problem for Baia for Baia Mare was known until recently as the mining and the industrial capital of Romania, metallurgy capital of Romania. So they had a lot of industry developed, a lot of sterile landfills, a lot of cyanide ponds. The industrial activity ceased in 2012. A key alarming event was in 2000 when one such cyanide pond spilled in a local river and then in another river, and it resulted in a huge ecological disaster on international scale, meaning 2 or 3 countries, because they spilled into Danube eventually. So recovering these elements and finding new uses for the polluted soil is very important for Baia Mare and other cities in Romania. And how can this be done affordable and ecological? So this is where SPIRE projects comes into play and provides new solutions and tested phytoremediation practices to recover the heavy metal polluted soils in Baia Mare. The consortium was interdisciplinary, led by the municipality of Baia Mare. I represent here Urba Sofia, which is an urban planning company. We had an IT component in the EcoSoft, which helped us with GIS components and also citizen reward token, because we want to focus on all aspects of urban regeneration, not only the nature-based solutions, also supporting eco behaviors. We had a communication partner, Ares Transylvania, the metropolitan area, which is the beneficiary of the metropolitan strategy for recovering the heavy metal polluted soil. The University of Agronomy, Sciences and Medicine and Veterinary, which help us develop the nature-based solutions and test the phytoremediation practices. And Green Energy Cluster, which focused on biomass upscaling. It's a project funded under the Urban Innovative Action, the fourth call. The topic is sustainable use of land and nature-based solutions, but the policy domains are cross-topic, from environment to public health policy to social employment policy and industrial energy policy. So quite a complex issue. What SPIRE proposed was to see how we can recover several of the lands that we know that might be polluted through phytoremediation technique, but all in order to achieve a bigger scope, to trigger an urban regeneration, to have the citizens recover the sites and use them, to improve a better ecological behavior, and also to use the phytoremediation as a resource. So there are several bio-based value chains that we tested. We work with citizens to develop pilot scale landscaping design for phytoremediation. We transform the sites and then we assessed how we can use the biomass resulted in local value chains. We tried to have some experiments with innovative materials, bio-based materials, and we had an eco startup mentoring process in which some ideas emerged how to use bio-based materials, but very important, it was the energy, production of energy. And we installed a thermal installation that is using biomass on one of the school gyms. So the circular economy practices at local level were important. We started the process with 5 pilot sites. They're located. It's important to mention that these sites are not industrial, have not been used for industrial purposes. They are in the proximity of industrial areas. So we hinted that the heavy metal pollution of this soil is high. And we were right. The heavy metal pollution of the soil is actually high. And there were perfect pilots to test different phytoremediation techniques. But first, we wanted to engage with citizens and local actors to see how we can transform these areas in a participative process. And we started with raising awareness and defining the problems and potential solutions. We looked at the potential landscape ambiences and design, even if it's an experimental intervention for ecologizing the sites. They can also be used with other purposes. We defined some key criteria for accessing it, using the site, mapping the key landmarks of the areas, and so forth. And in the end, we developed the technical plans for planting, for putting to experiment with the phytoremediation capable plants. And these technical plans were also represented, were co-implemented with the community. So we had planting events, and they also have been represented in this way in order to show the long-term vision for transforming the sites in which the citizens recover the areas when they become safe to use. So using all of these lessons learned from the pilot scale, we wanted to build a metropolitan strategy because, as I mentioned, the heritage of Biomare for industrial sites and the relict areas is huge. It is estimated, before SPIRE, it was estimated that the heavy metal pollution affects more than 627 hectares of land at metropolitan level. But actually, this number might be a lot higher, and I will show you why in a couple of slides. So the scope of the metropolitan strategy was to upscale at metropolitan level the main SPIRE pillars, which were remediation of the polluted land, use of biomass for energy and materials, and also the digital tools, the eco token reward system platform. Just to put it shortly, if you go with the bike to work or to school, you receive one token. If you participate in planting events, you receive several tokens. And with these tokens, the citizen could use them at the local facility, SPIRE Hub, in which they can 3D print elements, they can use the space for events and so forth. So it's a local ecosystem for supporting eco behaviors, closely connected to the phytoremediation and green interventions. So the methodology for delivering the metropolitan bio-based strategy and master plan was to have, again, another co-creation process, but this time with administrative units around Biomare and the other local action groups that have been established, also with the citizens through online tools, in a series of 3 workshops, from the assessment of upscaling requirements, remediation scenarios, and co-designing the interventions. So in phase 1, we looked at the data we had, and we performed some other analysis in order to establish exactly where we can have some clear proof or to have some key areas where we can take additional soil samples. And we have chose also natural areas, green areas that you will not suspect to be polluted by heavy metals, and other areas that were really near to the here is a landfill and cyanide ponds. So it was expected to have high level of pollution here, but also areas that were not suspected to have high levels of heavy metal pollution, they had. So our premises is that many of the sites at the metropolitan level present an alarming or an alarming level of pollution, and there is a need of new policies and mechanisms to upscale phytoremediation in order to clean the soil on a metropolitan scale. So these were the analysis done at metropolitan level. It's simple. Where you see red is bad, green is good. Very few green in this area, in these maps. So we had this analysis done, and now we wanted to create a vision that was shared and assumed by all actors, administrative units, citizens alike, local action groups, and this was done through workshops and questionnaires. And few key words is that it is required to have a better community nature integration, to restore the degraded areas, to include phytoremediation as a standard technique in other future projects and in the current practices of the public authorities, like maintenance of the green sites and so forth, and to strengthen the collaboration between administrative units for also green solutions and biomass upscaling, so circular value chains. And other innovative ideas emerged, such as conversion of tailing dams and cyanide ponds to green energy zones. Those are very complicated areas to remediate, in which phytoremediation is not able to do it. But if we remove the pollution, we can use that terrain, which will be unproductive, with solar panels to have local energy communities in the metropolitan area. In phase 2 scenarios, we developed a phytoremediation calculator. So with the set of plans that we have tested, we know the average of time to remediate the pollution depending on the soil samples. And this is available on the Spire website. So if you have soil samples of a site for plumb, cadmium, copper, and zinc, lead, not lumps, lead. You could estimate in how much time you can remediate the sites with phytoremediating capable plants. So the average is like 20 years, which is not a lot because all the sites have been idle for 20 years. And this is some of the species that we have tested, and we know each species what is capable to phytoremediate and what are the advantages to use them. And we have grouped them for species for phytoremediation and renaturation of degraded areas, so with high ecological purposes. Also species that have a good production of biomass, if you want to clean the soil and also produce biomass. And also combination of plants that can be used also for ornamental purposes. So public spaces, if you identify them as having heavy metal polluted soil, you can use these plants to clean it and also have good ambiances, which is also good solutions to be adopted in schoolyards or public institutions or hospitals and so forth. And now, so we wanted to have phytoremediation as standard practices. How do we do that? We developed an integrated approach in which we looked at projects, investments in different types of directions. We looked at land use recommendations and local policies and measures. We wanted to have a synergy between the ongoing strategies and investment plans of the municipalities, and we have created a set of recommendations how to link phytoremediation to other investments. For example, if you have a green corridor, a mobility corridor planned with a bike path or something like this, you can have the vegetation that is close to it using the plants that are able to phytoremediate. We also proposed in respect to the soil samples that we have done, we proposed detailed project fishes for those sites. So those are key areas of intervention, sort of a second phase of pilot sites. And we have also proposed some strategic interventions for long-term strategic projects. Concerning land use recommendation, it's very much related to the general urban plan of the local of the settlements, the city and the surrounding villages, because if you want to expand, you can have embedded in the regulation to use phytoremediation plans. If you maintain the green spaces, after a couple of years, you can easily replace other vegetation with phytoremediating capable vegetation. Also, there are other management frameworks that can be used in order to upscale phytoremediation capable solutions. And for each of the 1 minute, okay.
1 minute?
Yeah, just 2 slides.
Also, please take your time. Yeah.
Okay. So to each of these sets of intervention in the integrated approach, we have a set of nature-based solutions that can be upscaled, and I will not go into detail. The use of plants might be simple, just plant it, but actually they can represent many type of interventions and have many type of roles. And this is how the metropolitan strategy turned out. We have it embedded in a GIS platform, and is very much connected to the existing urban planning framework. So the likelihood of having it implemented is quite high. Just to close the presentation, Spire was a very bold and ambitious project. which opened a sort of Pandora box, a taboo subject in Romania in Baia Mare, which was the heavy metal pollution. We showed that is a real concern and we have to take action. And for these efforts, we have received some notable awards and nomination. Okay, I'm finished. If you want to scan the QR to check the strategy both in English and Romanian, if there are any Romanians here. And I will stop now. Thank you, Fana.
Pedro, thank you so much. Also there, I mean, you have opened many interesting topics, and I think it's worth getting more in depth. I'm sure that there will be some questions that will help us to come back to some of the elements that you have showed, because I'm personally also remained with a lot of curiosities. So it has been, I mean, you also showed, I mean, how we can go from a very strategic vision to something very ad hoc. And it's interesting by the end, this Pandora effect that you say, like how a taboo can become a kind of a cultural inquiry that can bring more endeavor in order to act on that topic. Talking about this mobilization, I will hand it now to Alba, because Alba will be showing us really how we can work on a citizen engagement level at European scale across a capillary network of sites. So Alba, if you would like to share your screen. Meanwhile, I also take the time to present you. Alba is from Fundación Iber Civis, and she holds a PhD in geology from the University of Saragossa. So as you see, another disciplines coming into the room. During her doctoral studies, she joined a local citizen science project focused on historical memory. And since then, she has been researching citizen science at the Iber Civis Foundation. She currently coordinates and participates in projects focused on soil literacy and soil preservation against climate change, and that at both national and European levels. Alba will be storytelling the project of EcoSoil. So I hand it to you, Alba. 15 minutes, 2 minutes before the end, I'm gonna give you a sign.
Thank you, Farah. I'm pleased to meet you all. Well, I'm here today to talk about citizen science initiatives for soil literacy, and with the specific, a quite different project from the ones we've seen before, which is the EcoSoil project. So first of all, let's talk about what the project is. It started in 2023 and it will last till 2027, and its main aim is to engage citizens in protecting and restoring soils by building their skills and enhancing their knowledge. So how are we gonna do it? These are like the main general tools we are gonna use. We are gonna carry out 28 tailor-made citizen science initiatives across all the European member states, where we are gonna sample 16,500 sites in different climate and biogeographic regions. We are gonna use a toolbox made of field guidelines, protocols and forums, and a toolkit that we are gonna see in the next slide. And everything is gonna be updated in the eco repo that we are gonna talk about this too. So this is more or less the preliminary toolkit we are gonna distribute among citizens and deliver. As you can see, there are different tools for soil sampling, like gloves, shovel, spoon, paper strips for pH, different types of containers regarding the soil indicator they are gonna measure. And it is gonna be distributed to citizens, and they are gonna be able to measure 8 different soil health indicators that are the ones you see on the screen. The ones in black at the left side of the screen, they are gonna be measured on site, but the ones in red, the presence of pollutants and biodiversity, are gonna be measured off-site, because they are gonna take a soil sample and send it to the ecolabs and be analyzed. And all the characteristics and all the results gathered from these 8 indicators are gonna be included in the Eco app that is being developed right now, and that is gonna be also connected to the Eco repo. This is gonna be a repository that is also compatible with the EU Soils Observatory, so it's gonna have a really scientific purpose. So our objectives, I like to call them the 3 E's for these citizens, because we are gonna engage them and stimulate their interest in soil science. empower them and let them to take an active role in the data collection and soil health, and also enable them to participate in the decision-making processes regarding soil health. But in general terms, our main objective is soil literacy. And here I show you two citations. The first one is from a multi-country survey about citizens' awareness, where they recognize that there's quite a low understanding of the soil challenge between the young adults and adults in general. And also I like the second citations also from Katikais and co-authors from 2024, where they also studied the knowledge gaps for soil literacy, and they stated that there's need to be an adaptive approach to soil literacy, respectful of multiple perspectives and sources of knowledge. And we truly believe that with citizen science, we can tackle both issues and in general soil literacy. So a bit of a context of our project, really briefly, with the soil mission. As we all know, there are two types of objectives, one quite more transversal, the operational ones, and the specific ones. So we contribute to improve the soil literacy in society. But quite a brief look to the operational ones, because we are a research and innovation program, so that we contribute to the first objective. Focus also on monitoring, so we focus on the third one, and which also would like to foster soil literacy. So we are surrounding the living labs and lighthouses, but as you can see in the graph, everything is related with each other. And this allows me to highlight that ECO isn't a living lab. It is a research and innovation program where knowledge is being created right now. And this knowledge will be further transformed into innovations in those living labs and lighthouses across Europe. And this is very important because I'm going to talk today about co-creation strategies that haven't been developed in a living lab, but that can be useful for sure for this kind of atmospheres. And very briefly, as you can see, the objective number 8 also has 4 minor objectives, and we contribute to all of them because we raise awareness about the societal role and value of soil. We also involve them and give them access to appropriate information and so on. So before starting with the co-creation strategies, you should know in which state we are now, because as Farah said before, we are quite in an initial state, and we are now testing the citizen science toolbox and training materials, and we are co-determining and co-defining the activities of each citizen science initiatives. These initiatives will start on 2025 in 9 countries, and in 2026 and 2027 in the rest of countries. So today we are going to explain the co-creation strategies we followed in this for this scope. In our first month of co-creation, we've developed 10 workshops in 5 different countries in urban areas. These workshops have been decided by the ECO team, agreed by everyone, and implemented by each partner who is responsible for those countries. Participants were always the ECO ambassadors, already engaged ambassadors or feasible ambassadors. And these ECO ambassadors are key facilitators of the initiatives on the local scale. And they are going to facilitate the distribution of the toolkit and the development of the initiatives. As I said before, this is the scope, and it is going to be developed also in the rest of countries. The methodology followed in those co-creation strategies is the same one for an in-person and an online format of the workshop, and this was very beneficial for the later assessment of those results. And we carried out 3 main activities that are the ones I show you over there. The first one, it was to give them a first contact with the preliminary version of the toolkit and the training materials. And we wanted to trigger their opinion sharing on them using also an adjectives cloud. For activity 2, we want the name as shaping participation. We wanted to evaluate certain key factors or or requirements they have for the project, for the future project, regarding certain aspects like enhancing their knowledge, their abilities, their connections in certain aspects. And we wanted them to place them on a graph, that is the one I show you over there, based on the Eisenhower's time management matrix popularized by COVID 2020. And as you can see, there's one line for necessity and one line for urgency. So they were placed in over there. And the ones, let's say that the ones that are placed in the upper right part of the graph are, let's say, the most important ones. So we studied those clusters of post-its, and we saw some synergies, some connections between those necessities. And this took us to the third activity with the eco-ambassadors, who was about the perspective and activities proposed. We started to co-determine activities focused on those needs, right? But they were proposing an upscaling process too. So let's talk about some preliminary results. They haven't been published yet, but it was quite nice to see that ambassadors saw a really proactive attitude, and their they had a willingness to lead their local initiatives with support and not with direct assistance from the project. We think is very beneficial for the long-term duration of the communities. And for now, in a very much more specific way, they aim to further co-design their initiatives. They seek to enhance their knowledge and understanding of soil health. And let's go to the fourth point. They desire also to easier access to soil science information. And these two last points leads us also to soil literacy. So let's say we are quite on a right path, because soil literacy is our main objective. So it's nice to see that our participants also desire to reach that. And finally, they are eager to improve their skills in different communication activities. And this was quite surprising, but very, very, very beneficial also for us. So we are now designing different co-creation workshops, starting from that. We would like to start also with a co-creation workshop for communication methods and strategies, maybe with techniques for communication to increase motivation and so on. Also, one workshop quite more theoretical for soil literacy, maybe carried out by the experts of the project. And also, once the sampling have started, they really want to carry out outreach activities and to understand their future results and which implications does it have for their soils, in order to boost soil restoration from their initiatives locally, maybe with applications for sustainable soil practices, or maybe knowledge on how to choose cultivations, etc. So this takes me also to some challenges we've found during co-creation and in general with citizen science. As you all know, there are many challenges, but these are the four main ones for us. It is time to consolidate and prepare each initiative, and especially to build trust, not only with the participants, but also with your partners that are not so used to co-creation strategies. Conditions, as you all know, in soil science, we have to take into account weather conditions, because, for example, we cannot start the sampling initiatives at the same time in each country. And also, obviously, the sociocultural and political context of each country, if you are reaching different ones. Expectations is also really important. People need to understand the barriers, but never make promises. And also about the innovation of your project and of your methodologies. And as you all know, quite a well-known one is the GDPR, because especially when mapping citizens, you are gathering so much information, and you should really consider ethical and legal issues, such as data protection and privacy. And also some advice, when mapping and engaging citizens or users of your living labs, you should first categorize them into priority groups, and this will help you, will facilitate so much the establishing contact stage. Try to include individuals with which are quite flexible towards change, because co-creation is quite difficult, and you quite need an open-minded person also there. and also individuals with different levels of knowledge, because it's always very beneficial. It's beneficial, but never underestimate their previous knowledge, because there are so many citizens that maybe they don't have formal studies on soil science, for example, but they have a really comprehensive idea and knowledge about it. So never underestimate it. And if you do not have a previous experience with co-creation, start with simple tools and activities and try to not prolong them so much. And this is a very important advice. Try to design a comprehensive feedback collection strategy so that you can gather all the information together, you can compare between workshops, and you can properly assess your co-creation strategies. And in general, people need time to get used to this kind of strategies and to get involved. Because as I said before, maybe not all of us have experience on this, and it's not that easy. And give them the feeling that the contribution is important, but really set clear initial objectives and manage their expectations. Because it's really important to know that not everything said in a co-creation activity is gonna come true. And this is something that must be known. So if you would like to have more information, you can contact the project, or you can write me, or in LinkedIn. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alba, also for the very punctual intervention, also ahead of the time. I thank the three speakers because we reached our target that by 11:15 we would have ended the presentation. I think you have brought a lot of rich input also from different perspectives. I see that there are many things in the chat and I didn't get to know the content. So maybe I can also give the floor to Concha, if you have sensed any questions that are emergent that we can start sharing.
I have some question now from Yolanta. I think this is for Alba. Do you involve local authorities? And if yes, in what format? Is it a challenge to involve them? This is the question.
Great, thank you, Yolanta. At this initial state, we are involving eco-ambassadors, and eco-ambassadors come from different target groups, especially from the educational communities, from local communities, but there are a few local authorities that are also interested. Always like small authorities, let's say, and they are gonna be engaged in the project in the final stages, where we are gonna kind of study the end users of our data and how can it improve soil health in small authorities. So I think they are not gonna be involved as eco-ambassadors in a majority, but they are gonna be involved more at the final stage of the project. And is it a challenge to involve them? For the moment, no, because maybe small local authorities that are participating right now in this moment, they are already quite into, let's say, sustainable practices or into this kind of issues. So they are quite proactive already. So we haven't found problem yet. Maybe at this final stage where we are gonna give them the results and try to make an implementation plan, maybe that in that moment it's more difficult.
Thank you, Alba. I think the question from Yolanta has been well answered. I encourage the participants to share their questions to Alba, Professor Fabrizio, and Kodrut Papina, please, in the chat, so that we can have more information or details. I would like to know, it's a question for you or three, which is the most challenge aspect you have faced in developing your project? If you have to highlight something which is very challenging this difficulty point, which will be?
If I can start, from my point of view, we were a very diverse group with people from very different backgrounds. There were architect, engineering, lawyer, soil scientist, communication experts. And the first issue, which took, I think, quite a year to be defined, was to share a common language, a mutual understanding, because whenever you deal with soil and from very different perspective, language can be a barrier, because you think that everything that your understanding is shared, and you find out that it is not. And so it takes quite a lot of interchange and meetings and discussion, really to set the ground, the common soil in which to work on soil. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fabrizio. Kodrut, please.
Yeah, we encountered many challenges in piloting the SPIRE project. If I just number a few from multiple domains, so for phytoremediation, one challenge with the sites is that the soil were derelict sites which had an unhomogeneous distribution of soil layers. So the level of heavy metal pollutions were very different from this point to 2 meters to the left. So it was very hard for the scientific partners, for the university, to determine a clear pattern of heavy metal pollution for that. So that was one challenge. For co-creation challenge, I think all of the participants knew that pollution is an issue in that area, but they didn't realize how urgent they are. So it was a challenge to raise awareness about this issue. And another challenge that we encountered in the co-creation process was co-creation activities fatigue. So if you have many activities and a recurrent one, there is a certain threshold in which the people will lose interest until they must see some real results. They have to see something physical, something palpable, something that they can touch. So in that regard, the planting events that we did help a lot in having especially the youth, very close to the project. Concerning the metropolitan strategy, the challenge was to focus the discussion on what we can achieve with the strategy, because having different local authorities at the same table, metropolitan area, the Baia Mare municipality, which is the urban center, and other local actors group, and some representatives from public institutions and governmental bodies, the discussions can escalate very quickly to different topics that are not in the power of the project, but some good results came out of that. As I presented to you, the solution of cleaning the cyanide ponds and the sterile landfills, the idea was to offer 5-year time to a company for free to come and clean for free the sites, and in exchange they can keep the valuable metals that they found there, because cyanide ponds and sterile landfills do have precious metals there, and having this exchange would be a win-win situation. And after 5 years, we will have a series of unproductive land. How we can use that? Solar energy. So that was something that we did not expect as a solution to include in the strategy, and it was not the focus of phytoremediation strategy. And yeah, I can keep going with challenges because it was a difficult project, but
it's an endless challenge. Thank you, Kodrut, very much for sharing these challenges with us. I would like to give the floor to Alba to share with us the most difficult point of implementing the project.
Okay. Yes, as you all know, we are ongoing. I already talked about some challenges during co-creation strategies, but in general, in the project, it is quite difficult to, or it has been quite difficult because at this point it's already quite almost designed. The toolkit and the training materials, we really want them to be specific in the soil science, and we want them to also be simple and try to be accessible for all. So it's quite difficult to find that balance. Also, it has to be comprehensive enough to provide data that is also compatible with different repositories. So everything must be super synchronized. And that has been a quite difficult part. Also, our Eco Ambassadors call has been quite busy. It's going on right now, but it has already been closed in Spain, in Italy, because we've reached also already our the final target numbers. And also one final challenge is to coordinate initiatives in different countries. It's super difficult. You have to start from general parts to specific parts, and that I would like to conclude with that.
Thank you, Alba, but the conclusion is too early for now for you because we have another question in the chat. Our participants would like to know if in the ECO project, is it possible to let the schools to participate in the project?
Of course. Actually, many of our Eco Ambassadors are linked to educational communities. As I said before, this call in Spain is already closed, but during the sampling and when everything starts next year, you will be able to contact these ambassadors, obtain the toolkit, and of course, many schools, let's say maybe more high schools, because it's quite more difficult to implement everything. They will be able to take the toolkit, to apply it, to be part of the project, and to learn with us.
Thank you very much, Alba. Yeah. Eugenio, please.
Okay, thanks, Concha. I also have a question for our audience. Actually, I think Alba was giving some advices at the end of her presentation on the profiling of, let's say, facilitator for co-creation in this soil mission or healthy soil living labs. I think compared to other types of co-creation processes, I'm thinking about urban regeneration processes, here co-creation really requires also kind of knowledge that covers some complexities, because here you need to be aware of also technical and hard science stuff. We have seen from the presentations how much mapping and collecting data and providing this information is relevant. So I was wondering how to become more, for all the three presenters, since you have also different backgrounds, how to become more attractive for social scientists and facilitators to get them involved in such a topic of healthy soil living labs. And because I think there must be some kind of collaboration between hard science, social science, if we want to really tackle this challenge. So I was wondering, what is your experience and how to really bring on board also social scientists in this challenge? I don't know who wants to answer.
So, Professor Fabrizio, please, you can start.
Well, I think it's the challenge now, I think, and it's of course not easy to tackle and to get successful outcome for this challenge. In my experience, I see that there is a sort of, I would say, trend now just to to get on board, let's say, soft scientists and leaving the hard scientists on the side, a sort of flip of the old paradigm. But I see a clear risk on them because there is a lot of lesson learned from the past, which we are really running the risk to completely forget. And so it's not only the risk to repeat what is already being done, but also to waste resource, energy, and time, not to point the attention in the right direction. When we are talking about soil health, there is already a lot of answers on the table from the soil science community. What is missing are the answer and the assumption of responsibilities from policy and policymakers. They're starting this process at EU level now, for example, with the proposal of the soil monitoring law, but there is still, at least in Italy, a completely lack of assumption responsibilities at the national level and in many regional levels. And here I think is where also the soft scientists can play a major role in order to foster this attention in the right direction. We need answer quickly, and these answers are not coming. They just pretend the problem do not exist. For example, soil sealing now is just completely disappear off the agenda. Since 2018, it was always there in the media, the report that the Ministry of Environment released every year. There was a lot of information about it. This year, nothing. So my fear is that there is this, let's say, removal, not to pretend that there is a problem, at least in Italy, from my experience, but elsewhere might not be the case. So I don't know if the case in Romania or in Spain, for example, whether maybe there is a different attention to this kind of themes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Odrut, what do you have to share with us?
Concerning what just Fabrizio said, yeah, in Romania, the issue still is a black box. We have a strategy for contaminated sites and nationwide, and they are put in two boxes. Contaminated sites, which are exactly the industrial areas where it's very easy to determine that, and potentially contaminated sites. So the methodology for identifying potentially contaminated sites, we found for Baia that is not the case. I mean, potentially contaminated sites will still are other industrial areas that might have heavy metal pollution, but there is no clear assessment of unusual suspect, the green areas in the proximity, the living areas in the proximity, the natural areas, agricultural field, and so forth, that also might have concerning elements of pollution. So, yeah, and there is no legislative or policy mechanism to recover the industrial platforms which are now privately owned, and many of them are passively still generating pollution through the landfills that we have, and the pollution that is there that is carried out by elements like wind and water. So yeah, there is a need for a transition concerning policy.
Thank you, Odrut. Alba, which is your experience?
You asked about how to make attractive social science. As our project is purely a citizen science project, and citizen science in general is made of science and social sciences, we already have partners in our consortium that are experts in social sciences, and they really focus on the demographic studies, and also on communication strategies. And also, as I said in my presentation, it's really rewarding to see that our participants are also very interested on the communication strategies and all the social part of the project. And they are also studying, we are using surveys, and the objective of these surveys is also to understand the behavioral change towards soils before and after the project. So all these aspects are related to soil sciences, and also maybe the connection with soils that the participants developed at the end of the project. But not only with our partners, we would also like to focus on end users at the end of our project that are also related to soil sciences, because maybe we gather a very broad data collection of soils, but that also reflects many aspects of soil sciences, and maybe some of our end users will be finally linked to soil sciences. We hope so, but we know it's difficult. We agree with Fabricio, and but we hope so.
Thank you very much, Alba. Farah, I think you had one question.
Actually, yes, that has been a bit anticipated by Kodrud, because I was more interested, since you and Fabrizio, you both, and also Alba, I think you're gonna be meeting this, since you are building really a very ambitious repository about like soil sampling and diagnosis across Europe, is the question of all these private lands, right? Like, you often, when we talk about private lands, it's industrial or company related, but we have all the residential areas with their gardens or but I mean, where you grow your food, and must probably, if the soil is not healthy, you're also exposed to like a health risk, right? So I was also interested to know, in your cases, especially Fabrizio and Kodrut, since you have been kind of doing this mapping at territorial scale, there has been at any time any kind of private engagements that associated soil health to also human health risks. And if at any time it had unlocked discussion, even at a small scale, to say, okay, maybe we need to start catalyzing some efforts. So also coming back to what you said as Pandora taboo, so it's not only about the industrial sites that are there, it's about like in your living environment, really we need to reconnect to the soil and how you adapt to it. And probably also like, for example, the waste management sometimes also can impact the soil health if you are kind of putting waste in some soil and affecting it. So where are you in this kind of the position of the private land and the private actors? Because indeed we often talk about citizens in general, but these are landowners. We have land access issues in soil, and we know that diagnosis is not enough. We need to intervene, especially to reheal. And this connects also to the timeline. Kodrut, correct me if I'm not wrong, because I heard it very fast. You spoke that it took 20 years to recover. So also
in the case of our level of heavy metal pollution, the average would be like 20 years.
20
There
years.
are
The timeline, this brings us another conflict, is like the time frame when we act in a project is specific. Often it's bounded within 3-4 years. The time that we really get the target is much higher. So where are you in this time of tensions that we find?
So you ask a lot of questions, and I will try to answer bits of them. So you started with the health issue, and there is actually a funny, sad story from our pilot sites. One of the sites, a bigger area in the periphery, before we intervened, was used by a herd of sheep to pasture, to eat the grass there. We found out that the soil is contaminated, and we involve local police to keep the sheep out of that site, out of that area. But it's more likely that they went in another part with also contaminated grass. So securing the areas that we know that is contaminated was a challenge because we could not put fences. It's a huge area. In that case, and it was not a singular event. In one side we had sheep, in the other side in another side we had goats. So it's something that to secure the area that that are polluted is very important. Touching on private actors, we could not reach the landowners of industrial platforms. They are sort of in the shadow, but there are other private actors that can be involved in a wider discussion, which is the farmers, the owners of agricultural land, We did take soil sample out of one agricultural land, which was not used for food production, so that was okay. It was used, I think, for I don't remember exactly, but it was not food production. So in that site, there was an average level of heavy metal pollution. And the idea and what we put in the strategy is to have a clear assessment of the heavy metal pollution in the areas that are used for agriculture and allow only certain type of crops, non-food crops, to be grown there. That will also remediate the soil in time. So this is another element of safety and discussing with private actors. Concerning the residents which own private land that might be contaminated, we have them involved in local events, in civic events, in discussions in the public space, and we told them like gently that there might be an issue with the health of their soil in their backyard, but we did not took any soil samples to prove it, but it's very likely that there can be heavy metal also in the private gardens.
Thank you. You also opened like different perspectives. Interesting is like also stories. Like then the question is how to upscale it, but quite relevant. Fabrizio, in your case, have you also met?
Yes, when you start working on soil survey in urban settlements, there is always the problem of access to land in general. You need permissions, and of course you don't get permission for private, you don't even ask. So most of the soil survey took place in public spaces, which are actually those that are used by the citizen, by the population, so mostly parks, or roadside greens areas and urban forest, so easy to access. Of course, you need the permission for the municipality, but being the municipality apartment itself, that was not an issue. What is an issue is always to make people understand that soil has a cross-boundary, let's say, dimension. So it's what happened, it's part of what's happening in your fields, on your property, is part of the larger process, the larger dynamics. And people are slowly, I think, getting aware of this. And regretfully, for example, when you're dealing with soil-based ecosystem services, such as water regulation, where there are flooding events and then again flooding events, and people start to think, well, it's not just my problem, it's a problem of the whole system that is not capable to drain excess water, but why? And then there are some back loops that start to make people think about the planning. Actually, the urban planning might have been completely messy without the crisis direction, rather than occupy land and for the municipality get money out of it, because that's the way it works in Italy, but without any attention to the functioning, the overall function of the system. And then now you have really belt of concrete and asphalt that prevent water to drain freely. What happened in Forlì, actually, with the floods in 2023, was over a much larger area where 22 river streams broke their banks, because the entire territory cannot function any longer. And I think that when events of this scale happen, people start to change their perspective and start to be more open. And I would say that now there is a more common sense among people, regretfully, than among politicians. Again, the problem is on land policy and how we plan the territory. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Fabrizio. I think, Farah, your question has been answered. Now I would like to give the floor to one of our participants today, Pawan Kumar, who has asked to briefly intervene for presenting a tool, a game that he has developed regarding citizens' involvement and soil literacy. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Concha. Thank you so much. And I'm very happy. I am a bit of an outsider. I'm not from the European country. I'm from India, but my interest on soil literacy brought me to your website and to today's conference. So I'm very grateful for giving me some time. I have been very passionate about soil literacy, and this snakes and ladders game, which I have just posted on the chat box, is an example which has been, I've got it translated into 32 languages, including 4 European languages with the help of volunteers and soil scientists and development professionals. We have used it very extensively with our farmers, with women, with children in our own country. I have also did a program on soil health monitoring in India in one district covering 0.1 million soil samples in one district. And then we mapped this whole data together into a village map, which I can just share with you for your example, because that is how we have to bring the people together. And without that, can you see my screen now?
It's coming slowly.
It's coming?
Now it's black. Now we can see your PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a village map of soil nutrients segregated into these 5 nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, pH, organic carbon. This is the plot-wise distribution of the soil samples from villagers' fields. And this has been laid on the Google Maps. And we have used technology for getting this data. We have used the methodology of using barcodes for collecting the soils. And I'm giving webinars on this subject in coming days to many people, including the government officials. So just an example that we have to, what I feel is that after working on this mapping, we then moved on to this mapping of the physical and the biological properties of soil as well, not focusing our soil mapping and testing only on the chemical properties. So as we go, as we learn forward, and then we made a composite index, which can be, all these assessments can be done by our farmers themselves. And so we have trained them, we have tried to train them using very simple tools. And so the mantra has been to simplify things, not make things complicated, but to simplify and demystify science so that the common citizen is engaged, and your school children are engaged, and your teachers are engaged, and your community is engaged, so that they are able to take corrective action of the soils. So this is for the individual farmers' fields, which I'm sharing, but then there are other things which I would like to just share with you. Very, very important, maybe. Can you?
Taban, if we can, quickly, and if you share your insights, and if you have any questions, since you have been hearing also from our speakers, and since I understand that you had an extensive experience, if you can connect this with these questions, and since you said
who's working on the soil literacy, and maybe to find my tool use this technique useful and useful in your context, I'll be very happy to provide. Although we have copyrighted this game, but it is available for dissemination free of cost, for learning, for sharing.
So this is the image that you posted in the chat, actually, of the game. Yeah. Okay. So,
Elba, do connect with me. I'll be very happy. And already I'm working with several countries now who want to use it in their context, and hence the translation of the game in that thing. But there are other things which I don't have time, and there is time.
If you would like to drop any link actually to access any available materials, so if anyone would like to reach out to you, please feel free to do it also in the chat.
My email, we can be connected through my email.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and information just for you, because there is a matchmaking platform that is online for nations. I don't know if you are registered already.
Yeah, I just registered myself. So I'll be in the news and at this thing, I'll be in the links. So I have my email. I'll be very happy to connect.
Yes, please drop your contacts like this. Whoever would like to know more, it seems quite interesting. I don't know. We still have kind of some minutes to go. If any has still a question suspended, even among the speakers, I don't know if you had any curiosity to your mutual interventions, please do. I'm gonna check because I think I had also some questions suspended in my case. Yeah, I had a question for Alba, because Alba, one of the challenge, we have been working on some citizen science work more related to air pollution, and one of the not soil pollution, and one of the question, it was how the connected data that is crowdsourced somehow, in your case it's really at large scale, can be actually a relevant data, so it can get scientific. You have mentioned in your case that you will be kind of training some ambassadors to get on board. I was one, interested by the profiles, but two, about your retainment strategies and your scientific verification strategies to make indeed what are these protocols, so this data can be quite attending the quality, sound quality, so it can be shareable as a data to refer to.
Okay, thank you, Farah, for your question. Okay, so basically we are focusing on 8 soil health indicators, and we are gonna tackle initially this quality of the data and the results obtained, starting with really precise guidelines to citizens to gather all those soil samplings and try to make it as simple as possible to not make mistakes. We will also have some thresholds maybe in the app in order, if we recognize that a number is not compatible with the, let's say, the proper numbers of that indicator or whatever. And also the most comprehensive part of the analysis is going to be carried out in the lab, because as I said before, 2 soil samples are going to be sent to the eco labs in Italy, in Bolzano. And they are going to analyze DNA, the micropollutions, nutrients, salts. So there's going to be also that result that is going to be scientific precise enough. And I think that in general, if we try to standardize everything, and that is going to allow us to compare results and to make that map that will allow us to see all those samples and that are going to be also useful for science.
Yeah, we are looking forward to see how it evolves, because indeed, also to exchange on the challenges, because in our case, it wasn't soil, it was something else much more delicate also at the level of the instrumentation. So there has been really big barriers in making the data sound to make decisions, because the question is like how you can build on this, build decisions based on data that is not taking. So it's interesting also to follow your process. Okay, I don't know if there are still suspended questions. I see that there are...
No, there are no more questions, Farah.
Okay, so maybe we can also start the conclusion at that case. Of course, I start with the thank you for the 3 speakers. You have really widened the angle of exploration, and I'm sure we didn't even cover all the complexity of urban soil, but we hope that we brought some insights that can be useful for anyone who would like to address challenges of healthy soil in urban environments. We try to bring different angles, also different instruments. We understand from all your experience that there are a lot of chapters still open. So there is also a need, so some effort, especially what you were mentioning regarding that we still lack some policy frameworks that really make mandatory not only the soil diagnosis, but also the embeddedness of soil within land use management policy, but also to recognize what are the unhealthy soil and what their correlation to our public health risk. I think you both gave very concrete examples about these systemic consequences that actually affect the whole urban living environment health. There has been, for who is still here and who would like also would watch the webinar in the future, there are some links that has been dropped in the chat. They will also attend to your email to who was attending, more relating to feedback. If you'd like to give us some feedbacks on the webinar, this is a way for us to improve the formats, but also to grasp what has been probably the most interesting learnings for you. It helps us also for us to be much more reflexive in our process. This webinar is part of many webinars happening within nations. To know about them, you can go to the nations.eu website, where you can access the planned webinars, especially from now to July. I ask also Gabriele for to drop some information, probably some links in the chat in case they need to attend to this. There are also many materials that are there because Nations has been operating since last year, and there are a lot of materials that can be beneficial to whoever would like either to contact the speakers, either to gain information. And I close with the matchmaking platform. Whoever is, as Eugenio said in the start, there are some calls that are open. There are 2 calls now. One is more related to soil and agriculture, rural areas. Another one more tailored to urban soils and with deadlines in October. So whoever is already engaged or interested in build shaping constellations, you can also register on the matchmaking platform of Nations and also see kind of a database of contacts that you can reach out to. Eugenio, I don't know if you would like to add anything to the concluding.
No, thanks, Farah and Concha and all the speakers. I don't have anything to add. I think it was really very, very helpful for I think for preparing new projects. I think we got really a lot of insights about how to reach stakeholders and engage them, how to bring together hard science and soft science, let's say, and also how to enrich soil science with complexity, because we have seen how soil process also many other challenges in cities about green areas, about different types of pollutions, about different types also of rules related to urban planning. So really, soil is the basis for many things. So we hope really that the message that we want to achieve is like how to make soil a priority also in urban planning, in urban studies and regeneration processes. Thank you.
So yeah, so there's a lot of also learning for the urban professionals, because we need to unlearn many things to reintegrate. So thank you all. Thank you for the interventions, the contributions. Thank you for who remained with us until the end and for the questions that enabled us to dive more. So I would say at this stage, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much
everybody.
again.
Thank you.
Nice
Bye.
day.
Have a nice day, everyone.